So Kenny Pickett didn't have a great rookie season. Like most young quarterbacks, he went through growing pains. What matters though is the growth that he was able to show and if that can lead to future success for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are expected to be better this upcoming season, but a lot of that is gonna depend on the development of Pickett and if he can turn into what Pittsburgh thinks he can be. The Pittsburgh Steelers took Kenny Pickett in the first round of last year's draft, 20th overall, but he started his rookie season as the backup to Mitch Trubisky, who the Steelers signed in the offseason. It was uncertain of when Pickett may finally see the field, but his chance came in week 4 when he made his debut in relief of Trubisky in a loss to the Jets. Pickett ended up rushing for 2 touchdowns and he completed 10 of his 13 passes. The bad news is other 3 throws were intercepted, including the first throw of his pro career, a pass that was intended for Chase Claypool but was instead picked off by Jordan Whitehead. Still, Pittsburgh must have seen some sort of promise in him because Pickett was named the Steelers starter going forward. Now, his first start didn't go great. Pittsburgh lost 38-3 to Buffalo and Pickett threw another interception. Then the following week against Tampa Bay, Pickett technically picked up his first career win, but he left the game in the 3rd quarter after he suffered a concussion. 9 weeks later, Pickett suffered another concussion, this time versus the Ravens. He only missed 1 game before returning to face the Raiders in a Week 16 nail-biter. Pickett ended up throwing a game-winning touchdown to George Pickens with less than a minute remaining to win the game, giving us our first glimpse of Pickett's clutch factor. Then, the next week at Baltimore, Pickett did it again. With under a minute left, he found Najee Harris for a touchdown. He became the first rookie quarterback in NFL history to throw a game-winning touchdown in the final minute of regulation in 2 straight games. Pickett ended up finishing his rookie season with 2,404 yards and 7 touchdowns to 9 interceptions while completing 63% of his passes. No, it wasn't a great rookie season, but there were plenty of improvements and he showed promise towards the end of the year. After all, Kenny Pickett will only get better with time. Now, as intriguing as Pickett's career in the pros has been, his college journey might have been even more interesting. Kenny Pickett was really only good for 1 year in college, and it came in his 5th season that he got due to COVID. He was spectacular. Pickett threw for 4,319 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions with a 67.2 completion percentage. He was the ACC Offensive Player of the Year and finished 3rd for the Heisman Trophy. That was the best season of his collegiate career, and it wasn't even close. Pickett came to Pittsburgh as a 3-star recruit and the 10th best pro-style quarterback in the 2017 class. He had originally committed to play at Temple, but he switched his commitment to Pitt. He spent his true freshman season as the backup to Max Brown and Ben DiNucci, but did get a chance to start in the Panthers' final game of the year. Well, Pitt ended up beating number 2 Miami. In the win, Pickett completed 18 of 29 passes for 193 yards and a touchdown, and he rushed for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pickett was then the starter in 2018, and he was fine at best. He threw for less than 2,000 yards and had 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, only completing 58.1% of his passes. His next 2 seasons were pretty much identical, except for the fact that Pitt only played 9 games in 2020. In both years, Pickett completed about 61% of his passes with 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. The biggest difference was on the ground. He rushed for 8 touchdowns in 2020 after only scoring 2 the year prior. Of course, Kenny Pickett then exploded in 2021 and turned into one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He earned himself a spot in the NFL, and the Steelers decided to use a first-round pick on him. 1 year later, Pittsburgh used another first-rounder on someone to help protect him, offensive tackle Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones wasn't a consistent starter at Georgia until this last season, but once he got his shot, he was great. Jones was named first-team All-SEC and immediately made the jump to the NFL. He's always been a freak of nature and expected to dominate. In fact, he got his first scholarship offer from Alabama while he was just in the 9th grade at Lithonia High School in Stonecrest, Georgia. Fast forward a few years, and Jones was a 5-star recruit and the 3rd best offensive tackle tackle in the 2020 class, but he didn't end up going to Tuscaloosa. Broderick Jones instead went to Georgia, where he won back-to-back national championships. Jones redshirted in 2020 before seeing an increase in playtime in 2021 and started some games in relief of Jamari Sawyer. Then, Jones became a regular starter last season and looked fantastic. Broderick Jones was the Steelers' only first-round pick, but Pittsburgh really got two first-round talents, the other being cornerback Joey Porter Jr., who the Steelers took with their first pick in the second round. His dad, also Joey Porter, was drafted by the Steelers back in 1999 and played with the team for 8 years. He even coached for the team for 5 seasons, so Joey Porter Jr. is already well familiar with the Steelers organization. He went to Penn State and was all Big Ten in 3 of his 4 seasons. Porter started in every game last year, recording 27 tackles and 11 passes defended. Porter is a great corner with good size and impressive physical attributes, and it really was a shock to see him fall out of the first round. The pick the Steelers used on Porter was actually the one they got from the Bears after trading Chase Claypool. So the Steelers had another second and went with another Big Ten defensive guy, Keanu Benton. Benton was a 4-year starter at Wisconsin and was all Big Ten twice. His last season in Madison, he had 36 tackles and 4.5 sacks. He'll be a potential starter and is actually currently listed as the Steelers' starting nose tackle on the depth chart. Then in the third round, the Steelers finally drafted a weapon for Kenny Pickett, tight end Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Washington was second team All-SEC last year after what was his best season in Athens. He had 28 catches for 454 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, his numbers aren't necessarily crazy, but he's an athletic freak who can block extremely well, has the ability to earn yards after the catch with his insane size, and has all the tools to develop into a high-level red zone target. So hopefully all those skills can come together to help out Kenny Pickett. The Steelers actually have some pretty good offensive weapons. The wide receiver group is very promising. The number 1 is still Deontay Johnson. He's entering the first season of a 2-year contract worth over $36 million. Johnson was a beast in 2021. He had 1,161 yards and 8 touchdowns on 107 receptions. Last season, he didn't quite have the same success though. Johnson was just shy of 900 yards and didn't even score a touchdown. Some of that had to do with different quarterbacks, but the rest may have been due to another new face, George Pickens. Pittsburgh took him in the second round a year ago, and he went on to have a pretty impressive rookie season. Pickens recorded 800 yards and 4 touchdowns on 52 receptions. It'll be very exciting to see just how he continues to grow in year 2. Chase Claypool was on the roster, but like I said earlier, the Steelers ended up trading him to the Bears for that pick that helped them land Porter. Then this offseason, Pittsburgh traded for Allen Robinson. He's coming off of a down season with the Rams, which is probably why Robinson only got traded for a 7th round pick swap. He hasn't had a ton of usage in the past 2 years, but he did have over 1,000 yards in 2019 and 2020. I think the Steelers wide receivers are pretty solid. I don't love any of those guys as true number 1s, but Pittsburgh has some really good depth at the very least. At tight end, Pat Freiermuth is coming off of a good second year in the league with 732 yards and 2 touchdowns. As a rookie, he only had 497 yards, but was a much bigger red zone threat with 7 touchdowns. To be fair though, the Steelers just didn't really score as many touchdowns in 2022. When they did though, it was often Najee Harris finding the end zone. He had 10 total touchdowns, 7 of which came on the ground. He rushed 272 times for 1,034 yards, and Najee caught 41 passes for 229 yards. He did a lot for that Steelers offense, and that's likely going to be the case again this season. Last season, the Steelers' offensive line was extremely mid, but hey, they were consistent, starting the same 5 guys all season. So credit where it's due, if you even care about that stuff. James Daniels played pretty well at left guard after he signed in 2022, but the unit was overall fine, but nothing too special. Pittsburgh went out this offseason and completely overhauled the left side of the line. Not only did they draft Broderick Jones, but the Steelers also signed left guard Isaac Suomalo. He was a part of that dominant Eagles offensive line and was really good cross-state in Philadelphia for 7 years. He will certainly be a big boost for Pickett. There are a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. I mean, we certainly were at the end of last year, and we sure hope to be proven right this year. It's always hard moving on after having a Hall of Fame quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger and having to enter a new era. The good news for Pittsburgh is that Mike Tomlin is still the guy running the ship for the foreseeable future, and the guy just doesn't do losing records apparently. The Steelers are a very good organization, and it's easy to feel like they'll be able to develop Kenny Pickett correctly. Pickett wasn't some crazy prospect. There's a reason why he didn't go until late in the first round a year ago. He didn't have a ton of success as a rookie, but he showed improvement, and more importantly, he showed promise. I personally think he could have what it takes to make it in the pros, and the Steelers are sure hoping he does.